Hello everybody and welcome Ten Shun. Architects, please subscribe now to get the latest ancient history news and independent research from around the world. I've been meaning to make a video on the Bosnian pyramids ever since I started this channel around 2.5 years ago, and last weekend as the Bosnian pyramids made the news again, I thought it was time to break down the subject and give my own unbiased opinion. The news story was in a serie AVOX who reported that almost all of the workers and the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun Archaeological Park have now been made redundant. Yes, is sad news, but why? Well, there's been a huge decrease in tourism, and therefore the site has generated for less money than expected. Professionals, guides and office staff have all been given redundancies. Investments have halted, equipment removed, and tools have stopped being supplied to the sites, and also no more scientific data is being taken this year. Security measures are still in place around apparent key archaeological locations, and they will be kept tidy and clean, and visitors are still welcome to come and see the pyramids. But I have to say I'm not surprised by the news. I have kept away from the subject of the Bosnian pyramids for quite some time, because I fear my honest assessment will not be welcomed by a lot of viewers. Before I go any further, I must just say that I do want to believe, just like Fox Mulder in the X-Files, but hard material evidence for these huge angular hills being man-made structures really is hard to come by. For a start, the so-called Pyramid of the Sun only looks like a pyramid from this angle, because only one phase of this natural hill is truly triangular. Have you ever wondered why this is the angle that's been used in just about every single photograph? Take a look at the aerial satellite photographs. We do see for angular phases, but only the north face is really similar to what we would expect of a pyramid. Zoom out further and you can see that the so-called pyramid is clearly just part of the natural high ground located south and west of the Soko. A lot of people interested in ancient civilizations want to believe in the Bosnian pyramids, and as I said, I do too. I really do, but I feel that a lot of those have been taken in by many of the claims, which I'll come to later when academics agree with respected alternative researchers, a group of people including Zahi Hawass, Graham Hancock, and Robert Schock. Yes, this is actually something they all agree on. Then you know that there must be serious doubts about the authenticity of the Bosnian pyramids, but nobody doubted there is archaeology at these sites. For example, there are Roman and medieval structures at the sides, and yes, there are underground tunnels, and there may well be chambers too, but this doesn't have proved that these are pyramids, and is analyzing the evidence that these structures are man-made pyramids that are concerning myself with in this video. In Egypt, we can see the blocks that built the pyramids. We can see that the Great Pyramid, for example, is clearly man-made. In South America and Mexico, many pyramids were once covered in greenery, grass, trees, bushes, and so on. Their discovery, many of them did look like natural hills, including the world's largest pyramid of Cholula that is still covered in grass today and has a church on top, but when excavators removed vegetation from the Central and South American structures, we could see clear and obvious cut blocks stacked in a pyramid shape, and yes, they were undoubtedly man-made at the beginning of this year. Work at the Bosnian pyramids had been going on for 15 years, yet they are still largely covered in grass, and yes, I know that removing the vegetation is a ridiculously huge job, and part of the pyramids have been excavated down to what those in charge of the projects called geopolymer conglomerates, concrete slabs, but as Robert Schoch himself says, this is just natural geology, flat sedimentary bedding. They and pyramid of the sun has been coated in concrete because the material seems to follow the angles of the pyramid's sloping faces, but this is just a natural dip of the sedimentary beds. If they really want to prove that this is a true pyramid, excavation needs to be done at the summit, and they need to work down on all four sides, but I do believe that this will reveal its true geological origin. And I know that people will comment and mention the electromagnetic and archaeoacoustic studies that have taken place, and yes, these do need explaining. And I will look into these in detail in a future video, but these scientific tests first need to be understood with regards to both large natural geological structures and also ones that are man-made. Also, is there any bias in the resource who funded the studies? Because, for example, density studies say that there are cavities inside one at the Bosnian pyramids, but cavities can form in large sedimentary deposits quite naturally. The way to remove all doubts on the pyramid's authenticity as man-made structures is surely to spend the manpower and money to simply peel back the earth and vegetation from the top down, maybe just the top 10 meters from the sun. It will suffice to show the world the pyramid's three-dimensional structures. Scientific studies that use technologies that most of us don't fully understand is one way to add credence to a theory, because it's hard for me and many of this to argue against or even honestly understand. But the way to gain universal acceptance from the layperson to the experts is to let our eyes see the pyramids. If pyramids are revealed, like when archaeologists remove the vegetation from a lost pyramid of Mexico, then the entire debate comes to an end. Nobody doused the pyramids of Chichen Itza a man-made, but many years ago they did look like natural hills. But maybe the reason why this hasn't happened is because there really isn't a pyramid to find some counter this and say, okay, it is a natural hill, but it has been artificially shaped to look like a pyramid. But I really don't see this being the case, and if it is, we do need to see tool marks at the very least. And don't forget, nature does produce such natural angular hills, the so-called pyramids that poke through the ice of Antarctica are yet more examples of natural pyramid-like structures, these being another site of speculation in the alternative community. It would be easier for me to say that these Antarctica mountains and the Bosnian hills, or Man-made pyramids. In fact, I'd probably get more thumbs or more subscribers and more views, but I'm yet to see any credible material evidence, and that really is the purpose of this video, to look for material evidence. Yes, we can all speculate, and it is fun to do so, but to claim that these are man-made structures really does require hard evidence. Finds inside the tunnels are said to be at least 6,000 years old, and I have no reason to doubt this. Cave finds throughout Europe go back tens of thousands of years. I don't doubt the authenticity of many of the archaeological discoveries, or the idea that ancient humans frequented these caves. I just saw the idea that these structures are ancient pyramids. Samaz Manijic, the leader of the Bosnian projects, has long said that the Bosnian pyramids are evidence of a civilization that is older than the Egyptians, which is something not hard to believe, especially with our knowledge of Quebec, Taipei in Turkey. But what I do find hard to believe is his claim that Bosnia has the world's largest and oldest step pyramid. So let's look into this in more detail, because yes, I have been very dismissive so far. What is the evidence that these structures are pyramids? Well, they are claimed to be pyramid shapes and oriented to the cardinal directions, much like the pyramids of Egypt. And although this is intriguing, it is possible the nature could have produced this phenomenon. It is an anomaly, I admit that, but it's not material evidence for man-made pyramids, as Robert Schoch says on his website. Schoch, being a professor of geology from the University of Boston, but also no stranger to taking and alternative viewpoints. Geology is full of regularities, from precise forms of mineral crystals to the common occurrence of cyclical sedimentation. Others point out that the Bosnian pyramids are geometrically aligned to each other, but the same can also be done in nature. Here are 3 natural peaks in the Alps that are clearly aligned in a triangular pattern. Alignments and regularities are interesting, but again, it's not hard material evidence for man-made pyramids. Material evidence is the so-called concrete blocks that are found below the earth and vegetation, but again, these are explained naturally, as Robert Schoch says, where Othman had sheets or concrete blocks and human intervention. I saw only perfectly natural sunstones and conglomerates that had been broken into larger or smaller blocks due to both tectonic stresses and gravity slumping. I personally have a master's degree in geology, and although I haven't seen the sites firsthand after looking at countless pictures, I must say I have to agree with Jacques. He also flew over them in a plane, and he says the natural from above, and I certainly believe that they look natural after looking at satellite imagery. I'll again refer to Robert Schoch, who went to the site in 2006, and therefore his words have a lot more weight than mine. He said the so-called pyramid of the sun and moon that they are, and I quote, composed of layers of sandstone, clay, mud, stone, siltstone, and conglomerates, apparently deposited in an ancient lake and river system during Miocene times. About 5.3 to 23 million years ago he continues rocks have been tilted and bends due to tectonic stresses which plastically deformed the clays and mud stones, but the sunstones and conglomerate broke into semi-regularly shaped pieces the Osman, a judge, and his team have excavated in numerous places, interpreting them as pavement terraces, concrete blocks, foundation stones, and so forth. Of course, the Great Pyramid is also made of irregular blocks of sedimentary rock, but they have been clearly stacked by humans to create a pyramid, a type of stacking that is unseen in Bosnia. But what about the radiocarbon dating? Well, if the rock beds have been naturally broken by tectonic stresses, then much younger organic material can get between and underneath the blocks. The radiocarbon dates from the pyramids that have been quoted as 30,000, 25,000, and 12,000 years old may well be all correct. But maybe this just tells us the days of tectonic activity when the bedrock stones were cracked naturally, as well as the hills. Robert Schock also has doubts about the tunnels and says that they have clearly been modified in recent times, not to mention the stories that they were used for the old Yugoslavian army for training. Reliable sources also states that the so-called inscriptions may well be a hoax, but yes, nobody doubts that there is archaeology at the sides. On the summit at the main hill there are the remains of a medieval fort that was built over the foundations of a Romans. There is also evidence of Neolithic habitation, but the sad thing in all of this is the fact that the excavations to uncover the so-called pyramids may actually be destroying the more important geology and paleontology, rare animal and plant fossils, and delicate trace fossils have been destroyed during the work. Sedimentary sandstone is often flat in appearance, often layered, often brittle under stress, and it can look artificial. If you believe that these stone pavements are man-made, then you may also find it hard to believe that these polygonal stones of Giant's Causeway are, in fact, natural geological structures, and that these large pyrite cubes grow this way in nature. I don't think the Bosnian pyramids are pyramids at all, but I am interested in the history of the caves as well as the nature, the Roman structure on top. I'm not saying that Osmanijika's pyramid. Again, E1, he does seem to be interpreting what he is seeing in a genuine manner, and by all accounts, everyone who has met him does compliment his character. But when humans want something so much, we can often see things in a biased way. But if I look objectively at the material evidence, i.e., the rocks and the blocks, this to me is clearly natural. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Ancient Architects. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, and please leave a comment below. Thank you very much.